Boy, I'm certainly glad I brought along an umbrella. This is one example of the type of climatological warfare that could be carried out by advanced aliens against us. Now, we can't prove it, but I certainly think it is within the realm of feasibility, yes. Now for that case of the day it rained flesh and blood. But first, the trivia question of the day. Let me extricate it here from its paper prison. The question for you. What is the technical term for someone who hates rain? And that includes me. This is multiple choice, inverse alphabetical order. Is it a pluviophobe, nephophobe, lilapsophobe, or brontophobe? Now the only prize for the correct answer, one pat on the back that you'll have to administer to yourself. Heck of a lot better than a slap on the belly with a wet trout. Now, we've had a number of unusual rains over the decades and centuries. For example, we've had fish fall, frogs fall, hay fall, sugar cubes, snakes, and spider webs, and maggots. All very unusual, but this may be the most unusual. This case occurred back on Tuesday, August 27th, 1841, over a tobacco plantation in Nashville, Tennessee. Slaves ran up to the owner, E.M. Courtney, telling him that flesh and blood was falling from a red cloud onto the tobacco. He went over and found that they were telling the truth. All types of small to large bits of flesh, blood on the tobacco plant leaves, and overhead an ellipsoidal red cloud slowly moving overhead. Now, a number of speculations have been derived from this. First of all, was this possibly a buzzard that was dropping its prey? But there were no buzzards in the area, and certainly it wasn't a red cloud. Another possibility, that an enormous windstorm, possibly even a cyclone, had picked up the body of a dead animal and dropped it there. Except this was a windless day. And perhaps the most controversial hypothesis, that this red cloud was actually a spacecraft, perhaps a space shuttle, and it was dropping off a mutilated animal that it had been examining. The ETs aboard it had been examining it. For example, we have many cases of cattle mutilations today. Possibly this was the very first documented case. We can't prove it, but certainly an intriguing question. What caused the rain of flesh and blood back in 1841? Now for that trivia question again, what do you call someone who hates the rain? Is it a pluviophobe, nephophobe, lilapsophobe, or brontophobe? You say brontophobe? No, it's a pluviophobe. And for the record, a nephophobe hates clouds, lilapsophobe hates hurricanes, and a brontophobe hates thunder. Now, we have many unusual, shocking facts about lightning. First of all, lightning has an electrical force in a typical volt of 100 million volts. Unbelievable. It also heats the air around it, at least momentarily, to up to 60,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Unbelievable. There is a bolt of lightning striking the earth every single second of every day. Unimaginable, but it's somewhere on earth. Lightning is striking right now. Now, lightning often kills people by striking the ground and bouncing up. Approximately 100 Americans are killed each and every year by lightning. And I should point out it's a myth that lightning doesn't strike the same spot twice. In the first 10 years of existence, the Empire State Building was struck no fewer than 68 times by lightning. And cowboy star Buck Taylor was struck and killed by a lightning bolt. Then after his burial, his tomb was struck twice by lightning bolts. Unbelievable. Now, back in 68 AD, the Emperor Nero of Rome committed suicide. At the same time, almost simultaneous with that suicide, a lightning bolt struck his portrait, a 124-foot portrait of him. It struck and destroyed that. Now, fast forward to the 11th century, and ravens were seen congregating over Nero's tomb. The Pope thought this was a satanic sign and ordered his tomb utterly destroyed. Now, we have a case in Petri, the Petri Church in Berlin, Germany, which was just finished and was holding its first service when lightning struck. The parishioners were able to put out that fire, but later in the day, a second lightning bolt struck and absolutely destroyed that newly built church. And speaking of churches, in Plymouth, North Carolina, back in 1882, at the Grace Episcopal Church, they planted 12 sycamore trees, one named for each of the apostles. Some years later, a lightning bolt struck and destroyed one of those trees. Not surprisingly, it was the tree named Judas. How about that? And there's a legend in old Maryland that if you have a toothache, you can cure it with a toothpick that's been fashioned from a sliver of wood from a tree struck by lightning. How about that? And perhaps the most unusual form of lightning is called ball lightning. Yes, it's spherical in shape, about 2 feet in diameter, and lasts for about a minute. And it can actually penetrate solid surfaces. Ball lightning has been reported moving up a staircase in a building and down the aisle of an airliner in flight. Yes, ball lightning. The shocking facts about lightning disclosed here. Now, what about history? Well, let's look at Christopher Columbus in 1492. His crew members were tired of a long voyage that seemed to be going nowhere and were preparing to mutiny when a tremendous storm racked the ship, almost capsized it. They had to fight to save it, and they forgot about the mutiny. A few days later, land was discovered, and Columbus' name, of course, known throughout history. Of course, if the mutiny had taken place, someone else ultimately would have discovered America. But because of that storm, Columbus is known to everyone. By the way, this is just one of many portraits of Columbus, all of them different. Why? Because he never sat to have his portrait painted. So those who painted it were basing it on descriptions they heard or hearsay, but not an actual portrait of the man himself. So we're not certain how he looked. Now let's go back in time to the 5th century BC with Xerxes the Great of Persia. He had prepared 400 ships for an invasion of Greece, but there was a tremendous storm that capsized and destroyed most of those ships and killed several of his soldiers. He abandoned the plan, and Greece was spared. How about that? And on an individual note, an artist, John Helms of New York, on Christmas 1977, homeless, destitute, went to the 86th floor of the Empire State Building preparing to commit suicide. He leapt. An hour later he woke. He'd been unconscious. He found himself where? On the ledge of the 85th floor. He'd knocked himself out hitting it. Why hadn't he fallen down? Because a windstorm had suddenly erupted and pushed him to the 85th floor as he was jumping. Saved his life. Now, he was outside the office of a TV station. They did a story about him, and many people came forward to help him. So wind not only saved his life, but resurrected it. How about that? Now let's open up the Vault of Strange Weathered Deaths. And what do we have? It says, struck 7 times by lightning. And this pertains to a man named Roy Sullivan, a ranger in the Shenandoah Valley in Virginia. He was struck no fewer than 7 separate times by lightning. Once lost an eyebrow, another time's a toenail, another time was knocked unconscious, but never severely injured. But after he retired, shockingly, he committed suicide. And we ask, did perhaps those lightning strikes somehow affect his brain, changing it physiologically so that he would consider killing himself? Or was it psychologically so depressed about having been hit by lightning 7 times that he did himself in? Or did it have no relationship at all? We don't know. But certainly an interesting case from the Vault of Strange Weathered Deaths for your consideration. Now, until next time, may the power of the cosmos be with you. Yes, yes, yes. Until next time, lightning is shocking.